If you like making your own brews and showing up to FNM to fight metas for Modern or Pioneer, you've come to the right place. Now let's head to the gameplay. Hello, how's it going? What I got for you today is a deck based around Dragonstorm and Terror of the Peaks. Basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to ramp up with a bunch of rituals to hit your Dragonstorm to fetch your dragons to win instantly. By instantly, I mean after a bunch of triggers. Without further ado, let's head to the games. Alright, first game. We decided to mulligan this hand to get some sort of cantrips in our hand to better build our ramp hand. Turn 1, it looks like they're playing some kind of ramp deck. That's the first impression that I got. Here we play our Serum Visions. To, like I said, build that hand, try to get those pyretic rituals in your hand to build up. Then they play their Gilded Goose and swing for 1. At this point, I still think they're trying to ramp, but you never know. I decided to pass the turn since I really didn't have anything to do here. Unfortunately, I did draw into the Terror of the Peaks, so that was not good on our part. It does look like they got stuck on 2 lands on their side, but they were able to ramp into a Coco, which got them a Cauldron Familiar and another Halfling. And then they seem to still be stuck on 2 lands. They play a spell that doubles their triggers of artifacts, of food, and all those type of tokens, which you will see in action here. By my turn 3, I decided to start drawing some cards, trying to get that specific number of rituals in my hand. It does look like I have an Ironcrag Feat in my hand. Unfortunately, I cannot crack it completely or go off yet, but I decide to play my cantrips to better build my hand. Now, mind you, this is turn 5. They do play a spell that gives everyone -1/-1, but his creature spells now cost 2 less to cast, so he's kind of casting everything for free. He plays a Tireless Tracker, which every time a land comes into play, he has a landfall trigger to create a treasure token, and because of the artifact creature there that's in play, he doubles those tokens. And now he plays 2 more creatures and passes the turn. By this point, I believe I have enough rituals in my hand to be able to play my Dragonstorm. And I get 4 triggers. With 4 triggers and he has no cards in hand, I will easily be able to take the game with Terror of the Peak triggers. And if for some reason, if he had some sort of interaction, which he doesn't, I would be able to swing for game with Dragon Lord Culligan there. He gives all the dragons haste. At this point, I'm just going to take out the Expressive Iterations and bring in the Blood Moons. I thought this was a good move on my part, since they don't seem to have any red on in their deck. I did have to mulligan once again, down to 1, but I do have that Blood Moon turn 2 here with the Pyretic Ritual and my Serum Visions to better build my hand. Unfortunately, I'm trying to, get more rituals in my hand, get Dragonstorm in my hand to have a better game. So I decided to slam the Blood Moon, but it does look like they have a basic forest down to be able to play any green creatures like his Tireless Tracker. They do play a Damping Sphere, which every time after my first spell, each spell that I cast costs 1 more to cast, so it kind of hinders storm decks. I get stuck on 2 lands here, and my opponent seems to take advantage of that by going off and playing his tireless tracker, which is going to give him landfall triggers to be able to get card advantage with those clue tokens that he cracks. And there he goes. He cracks his clue tokens. He starts swinging. At this point, I feel like I can't really do anything. So I decide to hardcast a Terror of the Peaks, try to get some stability, try to get some blockers on my side. But then they get his artifact, the artifact that doubles the amount of tokens that come into play for food, treasure, or clue tokens. So they definitely have an engine there to be able to crack to Goose, crack to Cauldron's Familiar, gain a bunch of life. I'm so far behind this game, but I decided to keep going because I do have Terror of the Peaks, and we can, trigger more enter the battlefield triggers if I get another one. And thankfully, I did have one in the hand. I just needed to top deck a land, which I did. So I was able to kill his tireless tracker, but he plays another one, plays a land, gets more triggers, gets doubles everything. At this point, like I said, I'm still really far behind, kind of hoping to top deck another Terror of the Peaks. That's the only way that I could stabilize, so I decided to keep playing, even though I am definitely on the back leg. I draw into a Metamorphose, unfortunately, drawing into a Dragon Lord, which was definitely not the play, not the card that I needed. I decided to take out the 2 Blood Moons and bring in board wipes, Brotherhood's Ending, which deals 3 damage to all creatures, or you can destroy all artifacts in play. So I thought that was a better play than the Blood Moons, since the Blood Moons really didn't do anything that game. And this is an interesting match where I decided to just ritual by turn 2 into a Terror of the Peaks and play the fast game, basically fearing that Damping Sphere. Even though I could destroy it with a Brotherhood's Hand, I didn't want to risk not drawing it for a couple other turns. So I'm just basically beating face 5 per turn and praying. And as you were able to see here, like in game 2, he was able to get down Damping Sphere by turn 2 and shut me out of that storm. But thankfully, that is why I decided to play Terror of the Peaks here. Continuing to beat for 5. He's down to 5. He's got to play his food tokens more conservatively as a way to gain life, while I try to eventually ramp up to 5 lands here to be able to play Terror of the Peaks, or at least 4 lands and an Iron Crag to be able to play my second Terror of the Peaks to really start doing some work. So same story as the first. As you can see, my opponent is desperately trying to just continue to gain life, really trying to stabilize his board to be able to eventually start doing all the shenanigans that he was able to do here in game 2, making doubles of everything, really stabilizing the board. He's able to get a cat with his Court Calling here to be able to create a food token, and then eventually sacrifice the cat to gain life. But at this point, he's just continuing to sacrifice his food tokens to try to keep his head above water here. Really trying to keep me at bay here with Terror of the Peaks. At this point, I'm just going to preordain, try to cantrip some lands into my hand. Fortunately, I was able to get a mountain after looking at 2. And then scrying them to the bottom. He's able to block with his Goose, so preventing that 5 damage to his face was very beneficial to him. He then starts creating more food tokens by playing another Gilded Goose, cracking them to gain more life. I was thankfully able to top deck another land here to be able to hardcast my Terror of the Peaks. At this point, it does trigger the first Terror of the Peaks to deal 5 to the face here. And then I continue to swing at him directly. He then decides to block with his goose. At this point, it's looking really dire for him as he tries to crack another food token at the end of my turn here. And he gets another goose down to be able to continue to block my hits. As I continue to top deck more Dragon Lords, unplayable Dragon Lords. Specifically with that damping sphere off, I can't really play a Manamorphose and then get the colors that I need to be able to play because of that damping sphere. So my only out is just to continue to keep beating face here 10 at a time to be able to win the game. But my opponent does top out, which means he's not going to be able to crack any food anytime soon. Unfortunately, his artifact creature came too late. Now we move on to game number 3. All right. For this game, my first hand is too land heavy, but I decided to keep it anyways. Since I have the 2 rituals and an Iron Crag, I was hoping maybe eventually I could draw into the combo or, into cantrips to be able to build that combo. At first glance here, I thought that I was going to go against Burn, but then they played this creature, which is a human, and then they played Cavern of Souls, which they named human as well. So I knew what I was in for. It's going to be, I'm going to get beat down by some humans, which is always a hard fight since they're so aggro at times. Thankfully, I do have 2 rituals, 4 lands, potential 5 lands here in my hand, with 2 rituals, an Iron Crag, and a Dragonstorm. So by next turn, I should be able to do the combo and win by turn 4. I top deck another Dragonstorm, which is good. We don't want to top deck any Terror of the Peaks or any relevant dragons. I'm able to go off with 4 Dragonstorm triggers on the stack. Put all the Terror of the Peak triggers to face. I decided to get Dragon Lord Kolaghan to give all my dragons haste, and by that point my opponent has seen enough of the combo. Once again, I like to take out my expressive iterations to bring in some sideboard cards. So I decided to bring in a board wipe, which is a Brotherhood Hand, and then some blood, and then a Blood Moon. I think Blood Moon could be relevant here in this game, specifically since they're playing humans there, but it looks like it's just mono white humans or white red humans, so it might not be too relevant. I have a cantrip in my hand, and I have the Brotherhood Hand in my hand as well, so I'm able to kind of build my hand a little bit here on turn 1. Just make sure I get the land drops to be able to play that Brotherhood's End by turn 3 at least. They're able to play 2 token creatures on the battlefield by turn 2 here, which doesn't seem too threatening at the moment, but you'll see that they are able to threaten me with more creatures here soon. I do draw into the Blood Moon, which I decided to play instead of Brotherhood's End since they don't have that many threats out as of yet. By this point, they flash in another human. By turn 4 here, they're able to do some burning adversary things by creating mana, creating playing a creature, which at the end of the turn you sacrifice it. Then they get 4 1/1 tokens here. Obviously, at this point, I am going to board wipe since I am down to 3 life by turn 5. Unfortunately, they were sitting on 2 Aether Vials. With no threats on their side of the board during my turn, I was able to do the Dragonstorm thing out and win the game. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to capture that in the video. On to the next game, I say. It seems like playing against some sort of Valkut deck. Turn 1, I decided to Serum Visions here. Put the Desperate Ritual on top here so we can ramp up eventually. They play a Red and 6 by turn 2. They don't have any lands in their graveyard, so they weren't able to take advantage of his ability. Turn 2, I'm not able to draw into anything that I can play untapped here, so I have to play my Valkut as a land as they play their God card. Trying to assemble Exodia. Just kidding. By turn 3 here, I play an Expressive Iteration, trying to dig some more, trying to play some land drops. Here I'm thinking I'm actually doing some math to be able to play this Dragonstorm by turn 4. Since I have a wazoo of rituals in my hand, I will be able to chain them to play that Dragonstorm by turn 4 here. By this point, my opponent plays a Valkut Exploration enchantment, which has landfall triggers. Something that's really not relevant at the moment. I am able to freely go for my rituals and add a bunch of mana here to be able to play my Dragonstorm with 5 Dragonstorm triggers. Excuse me, 6 Dragonstorm triggers. Which thankfully I do have enough dragons to be able to play all of those triggers. Of course, I get the Terror of the Peaks, and I get my other dragons here. By this point, my opponent has seen enough and packs it in for game 2. For the sideboard plan here, of course, I take out my Expressive Iterations for anything that's relevant. I bring in the Blood Moons and 1 Oblivion Stone. Still don't really understand what my opponent's trying to do, so I'm trying out some sort of Groot brew. Anyways, I respect it. Since he is a fellow brewer, we respect the hustle. But anyways, I'm here for the memes, he's here for the memes, and of course we are continuing to lead on with some cantrips of our own. Binning both those, playing another cantrip here. Deciding to put the Dragonstorm on the top of my deck here. But they decided to Demolition Field me, which makes me shuffle my deck, so I don't know which card I was going to draw. I just tried to Manamorphose just to try to dig another land. And the last game here, I'm able to keep this hand since I do have a Preordained in my hand to be able to cantrip things away that are not needed here. I decide to play a Valkut's Awakening here, tapped here, reserving the 3rd one here and my Shockland to be able to play some things on turn 3, maybe a Valkut's Awakening, and that is exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to play it. And once again, the video cuts off. I wasn't able to record that match, but I ended up doing the Dragonstorm thing once again. Binning one of my Dragon Lords in a land to draw 3 additional cards. By this point, I do have enough cards to be able to go off by the next turn or the turn after. depending on when I draw Dragonstorm, but unfortunately I haven't drawn it. My opponent seems to be playing Living End at this point. Cascades into his other spells. By this point, he's had cycled a lot of cards here into his graveyard. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him. I didn't feel like doing the math of how much he would be swinging for next game. So I decided to kind of just put everything on the line here, do another Valkut, trying to draw into the combo here by turn 4. But unfortunately, I was not fast enough with my deck, and he wins this game. By this point, during the sideboard process, I've gone against Living End so many times that it becomes kind of easy on what I want to sideboard in. Again, the expressive iterations go out, and the Graveyard Hate along with the plain free spells hate come in the form of Void Mirror and Soul Guide Lantern. First hand here I decided to keep since I do have a cantrip in the form of Preordain. Decide to bin both of those cards, then draw into another cantrip here. If I could draw any of my hate pieces, I think I could have bought enough time to be able to go off here with my Storm Dragon strategy. Turn 1, they do the grief thing. Fortunately, they don't reiterate that card or bounce it or of any sort. At this point, I put the Ironcrag Feet at the bottom, which will cost me later. I'll let you know when I make the mistake once again here. I'm playing a bunch of cantrips, still trying to build my hand how I want it, as any Storm deck does, while they cycle their creatures to be able to never miss a land drop here. And also the Surveil lands help a lot. I utilize Metamorphose as a red-blue here just to draw an extra card. I do draw into the Dragonstorm, and I use my Serum Visions to further filter my hand. Play an Otawara and then pass the turn. And here's where not grabbing that Ironcrag Feet comes back to bite me in the butt. I think that I have it in my hand, so of course I play my 2 Pyretic Rituals and try to play Dragonstorm, but I didn't realize that I didn't have it in my hand. I think it was fatigue or some sort, but I decided to rage quit, as one does after that defeat. Anyways, that does it for this video. If you liked it and you're still here, please don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff that helps me put out this video in front of the eyes of other people that like to be a meme. Alright, until next time.